What's good, YouTube? Bro Jody here, bringing you another match of the British Bruxish. Today it will be our 3.5 exhibition match against the Majors Division team of the Tennessee Tirtougas. So this isn't an official league match. As I said in a previous video, we are looking to do a couple of exhibition matches throughout the season against some teams from the Majors Division who we won't be playing in the regular season. There is also a couple of minors teams who we won't be playing against, so I may organise potentially having an exhibition match against them during the playoff time, just so we can kind of play as many of the minors teams as well. So if you haven't already, please drop a like on the video and hit that subscribe button, and we will jump into it. So our team, we haven't had any more sort of changes or anything like that from when our last trades in our week 2 match. So looking up at what we have to go up against at Tennessee, to be honest, I'm feeling pretty okay about this matchup. The only kind of things I'm feeling a bit wary about are those two at the top of the list there, the Mega Altaria and the Jirachi. Two very solid mons. Everything else in the team, the other 9 mons, we have something that we can hard check against it. So I'm not too worried about that. Those things. I mean, Nidoking could give us some problems. Same with Obstagoon if we don't prepare for them. Vaporeon, I have lost draft matches to Vaporeon. That was against the Seattle Marinis in the regular season, just gone in season 3. I lost to his Vaporeon. So I know there is mons there that could trip us up if we don't prepare for them and don't appreciate how much they can do. We have come off the back of our week 2 loss, so I am looking to gain some momentum and at least take this match to the wire. Because he is a Majors Division, he's effectively the division above us, so it is going to be a very, very tough game. Looking at the rosters, who do I think he's going to bring? Well, realistically, I think Mega Altaria and Jirachi for a definite, because they both do so much work against our team. I feel Chandelure does, because of Entei's power, I feel like Chandelure is something that we have to kind of play about a little bit. Vaporeon, I don't know whether it's because I've lost to games in it in the past, but I feel like Vaporeon can do quite a bit of work against us. Nidoking as well, with that sheer force and the type coverage on that, so I feel that Nidoking's most likely going to end up coming. So beyond that, I think Donphan, because Donphan would round off that team potentially, because I think he would need some sort of hazard set up against us, and Donphan's probably his best option of that. In terms of the types of what we do have on each team, with that ground type also coming in quite clutch against the Mega Diancie there as well. So yeah, from there let us jump across and see what we're going to be bringing. Okay, so taking a look at our roster here. So Mega Diancie, we've went pretty standard sort of set. Offensive Stealth Rocks. There's 3 standard coverage moves: the Earth Power, Diamond Storm, and the Moonblast. Just kind of tear holes in teams, get that, have that offensive Stealth Rocks option as a second Stealth Rock setter, having the Magic Bounce, super clutch. We all kind of know what Mega Diancie does, and she does it really well. She's just going to be there to kind of just start tearing holes in teams. Moving over to Latios. Now, Latios is very much speed creeped, so what I did was speed creeped Latios to outspeed the Choice Scarf Jirachi. We can't OHKO it, but by outspeeding it, we only take 1 hit in return, which we should be able to live because of that physical investment. So it just gives us such a strong option to be able to do that, and in theory that also means that by outspeeding the Choice Scarf Jirachi, Latios will outspeed everything on his team, minus the priority moves. Because Jirachi is the highest base speed of all his mons, so we've creeped that just so we can outspeed, and we've just picked 4 moves that can quite simply just counter all of the as much of his team as possible. So the Draco Meteor, nothing really on his team wants to take that apart from Mega Altaria. Psychic, Mystical Fire, Aura Sphere. When you look down his roster, all of those kind of just do work on different mons of the team. The only thing we've got to watch out for is going Mystical Fire if he pivots into Chandelure. Same with Entei if we do click a fire type move. But that's something that kind of we have to just play around if he brings the Chandelure. So we brought this mon in a similar sort of set in week 1 against Shaka, but I've changed things up slightly. So I've brought the Choice Scarf Entei, but what I've done is I've speed creeped Entei in quite a cheeky way. So it's creeped in 2 ways. The first one is its speed creep to outspeed the +1 Dragon Dance Mega Altaria. Which is quite important because the Earthquake from that normally would OHKO us. I've then creeped the rest into the HP, which actually makes it so max damage on the +1 is still only 96%. So as long as he hasn't got rocks up, we are guaranteed to live an Earthquake on +1, which is huge. Huge. After Stealth Rocks, it becomes a roll. Granted, the roll is in our favour, but I don't like the way our luck has been going when we have relied on things like hacks and rolls this season. It has really come back to bite us in the arse quite hard at times. So I'm not taking any chances. Again, the move coverage, pretty self-explanatory looking down the list. Taking care of everything. The extreme speed is in there just because in case he gets more than that +1 off. So if he gets to +2 Dragon Dance, that's when we've got the extreme speed for. So moving over to our next mon, we have a second Choice Scarf. Are we going for the triple scarf in this? So we've got Latios, Entei and Honchkrow. Triple scarf. Now Honchkrow again is another speed creep. Honchkrow is speed creeped to outspeed everything on his team minus the Jirachi after its Choice Scarf is kicked in. It can outspeed everything on that team minus Jirachi if Jirachi is Choice Scarfed, which is quite a nice little thing to have there as well in the back pocket. We've got the Brave Bird, the Sucker Punch and the Superpower on there. I have put which all do incredible damage. The Sucker Punch does go in against Jirachi, which is there as a kind of cover just in case he does bring the Scarf. Now the Facade is on there because the amount of times we have been encountering paralysis, burn, poison, all these hacks sort of add-on abilities, I was kind of, you know what, we've got the Moxie, I'm not going to take any chances. If we get hit with a poison quite early on, or toxic, or even the paralysis, because Thunderwave Jirachi is a thing, we have that cover with Facade. Yes, it might, especially if it's a paralysis, it'll drop our speed, but with the Choice Scarf, that kind of counteracts that a little bit at least for us, so we still should outspeed some things. And the Facade will come in there at double power, base 140, and that'll do some incredible damage for us going through. All the other moves there kind of pretty much OHKO most of his team, especially after a +1 trigger on the Moxie. So it's just a case of if we can get it so we set up with he has the right mons left based on our set, we could get 2 or 3 kills in quite quick succession there. So next up is a debut on our team, our debut for our little Gligar, who we picked up in trade of Rhydon, is our Eviolite user. Now Gligar's coming in as our main defog option. In terms of things, I went pretty standard sort of bulky set, button things out as much as possible to get that defog and pivot with the Roost. We have got Earthquake as our main damage output. Now, the only thing we have to be wary of with that is, because that is our main damage output, other than obviously U-turn, is he does have the Rotom Mow that he can pivot into, which could be potentially issues. If he hasn't got Rotom Mow with us, it's just happy days, and we can pretty much just click that Earthquake as much as we want. That'll do incredible damage to Jirachi, and also Nidoking, as well as the Chandelure as well. U-turn comes in pretty nice, so we can defog, roost up if needs be, and then pivot out on that U-turn, and just quite nice. It can just cause little bits of chip damage, little bits of things. It does have the immunity as well if he does start throwing Toxics about. I went with immunity just because it could come in quite useful, and give us a nice free pivot in if he does start throwing Toxics. Now the last mon on our team, this is kind of a little bit interesting, because again, like I said, I was expecting quite a lot of physical attackers to be coming our way. So I've went with kind of a little bit of a different Uxie to what I normally use. So it's still going to be our primary Stealth Rock setter, and it does have the substitute and the leftovers, so it's going to be kind of hopefully potentially sticking around a little bit. And we've paired that up with the Reflect and the Draining Kiss. So the idea is basically if we can get in there and set up with the sub and the Reflect, we can just start chipping away, because I don't actually think nothing on his team really, with that amount of recovery, can start to outpace Uxie very efficiently without doing something like Toxic or something like that, which the sub will prevent. So, and even then with the Reflect up, a lot of the physical attackers are still going to take 2 shots, maybe even 3 to break through that sub. So we're going to be in a super clutch situation if we can get that set up, and be able to kind of start taking a lot of chip away, and then regaining as well with the Draining Kiss plus the leftovers. So Uxie is going to kind of take that attrition place that Celesteela has in quite a few of our teams, and we're going to be running Uxie for that, because I feel that Celesteela doesn't have as strong a matchup this week, so I'm kind of bringing Uxie in that sort of role instead, which is going to possibly throw him quite a little bit, because normally when bring him it has been, and normally what you do see is quite often sort of Suicide Lead, Stealth Rocks, Explosion, things like that, so it could flip it quite nicely and give a bit of a shock to the system coming in with that. So without further ado, we will head off and check out this exhibition match. What's up guys, so this is the match with Matthew and Tennessee Tirtougas. It is a very long match. I actually needed a bit of a break after playing it, to kind of recover enough to be able to record the audio for it. The match was very tense, and a little bit stressful, as you'll see towards the end of it. It's about twice as long as most of my normal draft matches as well. So without further ado, you can see his roster pretty solid based on what I predicted. So he leads off with the Jirachi, with us as Uxie as expected, and he leads with the pivot in the U-turn. Absolutely fine for us. Drops into Rotom. We hit him with the Stealth Rocks, which we then pivot into Gligar, expecting the Volt switch. However, he then goes defog straight away, which is super clutch, and then hits us with the Will-O-Wisp, which is a little bit painful for Gligar, but not too bad. We then pivot out ourselves into Entei, to give us a strong position on the Rotom. Now, we expect him to pivot out into Chandelure to hit the Flash Fire, so we click the Stone Edge, which comes in super nice, and we managed to take out Chandelure really quickly, giving us the 6-5 early lead. He brings in Nidoking, which we do expect the ground type attack, so we pivot back out into Gligar, which he has hit us with a Sludge Wave instead, expecting us to switch. Which is absolutely fine. We aren't getting hit with that burn, but then he clicks us with the Ice Beam, which kind of balances things out now. So we pivot into Uxie. He brings out the Rotom, expecting these Stealth Rocks. However, we throw out the sub, which catches him a little bit off guard, I think. We then Draining Kiss and realise we're basically doing nothing against it with the Draining Kiss. He hits the Volt Switch, but we're so bulky, the sub still remains up. He pivots into the Jirachi and hits us with the U-turn, which does cause the sub to fade this time, and pivot back into the Rotom, predicting those rocks again. However, this time we throw up the Reflect. So beginning to set up now a little bit for all the guys. So we can bring in Deoncé at this point, and which he goes into the Volt Switch, and so then brings in Obstagoon. Now, I know from the chat this was a little bit of a misplay on his part because he thought Obstagoon outspeeded, he misread the speed tiers, and Deoncé obviously then comes in and one-shots it with the Moonblast. So it puts his misplay comes in our benefit. We end up again with Uxie and Jirachi again. He does pivot into the Mega Altaria now, so we do choose to stay in, hitting with the Draining Kiss, which does do a nice little chunk there. We are just aiming to get this little bit of chip damage off with Uxie to be able to sweep with our main offensive threat, so we're quite happy just to sit and grind through some of these with Uxie. You'll see Uxie here quite a bit, just chipping away as it goes. So again, he brings back out this Jirachi, knowing the U-turn does it. However, it doesn't from a full damage on the sub. So we managed to throw up the Reflect, and the Nidoking comes in with the Sludge Wave to finish off that sub. We hit the Draining Kiss, which doesn't really do much against him, but we are healing up quite nicely here. He clips us with the Sludge Wave, which puts us down and does major damage while we throw up those rocks. Getting them back up, ideally we need to get Rotom down so he can't remove those rocks, and then we're just set. We pivot into Laddie, and Sludge Wave does mega damage to that. So he sticks with Jirachi, and we clip the Mystical Fire, and we get that special attack drop, which isn't really relevant at this point, but he then pivots into Mega Altaria, which we then clip the Mystical Fire again, not just basically going to try and get a KO, and forced to pivot into Uxie again. He goes with the Roost, which is kind of expected, and this is the point kind of on Draft League matches are normally finished, but as you can see there is plenty left to still go. So we throw up another sub against the Jirachi, knowing it can't take one shot our sub. It goes for the Wish, and we throw up the Reflect. This is a point we should have probably went a bit more offensive with Uxie, and start chipping away with some extra stuff rather than throw up that Reflect, just to kind of play around that Wish and get as much damage off as possible before the Wish kicked in, because that would have stopped him getting back to full. So the Iron Head comes in again, but we do live the second Iron Head because of the Reflect. Well, the sub lives it. Draining Kiss continues to just chip away, but we can't really do anything because he has those lefties. So we just let the sub fall at this point, before then just pivoting out. I believe we then pivot out. Yeah, we pivot out to NT at this point, and we click the Sacred Fire, basically aiming to just really tear a hole in something. He pivots into the Nidoking, and our Reflect wears off, but the Sacred Fire does come in and gets that clutch burn on the 50%. It doesn't impact how much it does on a special attack, however the burn does do that extra damage, which is super nice. So we go for the Sacred Fire again, knowing we outspeed. We hit the Mega Altaria, but we do get the burn on the Mega Altaria, which this time it comes in useful with it being the physical attacker. We miss that second Sacred Fire, which is absolutely brutal for us, and we're now just seeing that little chip damage from the burn after the Roost. So we stay in, we are choiced, so we just keep clicking that Sacred Fire. Because of the burn, return does nothing to us. So we click the Sacred Fire again, when he went return. Now at this point we probably should have pivoted out, but we just keep clicking the Sacred Fire to kind of try and keep that momentum going. But obviously he goes for the Roost, gets up to 72, drops to 66, and then he clicks Roost again, knowing we're probably going to stay in. So again, 2 turns in a row where we probably should have pivoted out into something to get the better matchup there rather than staying in. Sacred Fire comes in again as expected, and the return finally finishes off Entei, leveling it 4 apiece. So at this point we kind of need to start hammering away and tearing holes. So we go with Honchkrow with a superpower, and that was expecting a switch into Jirachi at that point, which obviously we didn't get. So we then pivot back out into Yuxi just to avoid them stat drops, but return does absolutely nothing because we are so bulky. So we get that leftovers and the burn, and he pivots out into Rotom, so we see that defog coming a mile away at this point for the next turn. So we make that pivot into, at this point, we make the pivot into Mega Deontay. And Magic Bounces the defog back, but it still removes the rocks, which is fine, because we still have a couple of rock setters. We hit the Diamond Storm and we get that defensive boost, which isn't useful against the Rotom, and unfortunately because he went Jirachi, it's not useful there either. Jirachi is causing us so many problems this match. So we keep swinging with and keep trying to just chip away with Yuxi at this point. We need to set the rocks back up. At this point Yuxi can't really do anything against Jirachi, so he drops into Rotom where we get the Reflect Up. Again, that's another option where we should have probably pushed a bit more offensively in preparation, expecting that switch. So at this point with Draining Kiss we're just recovering bits and bits here. The defog comes in, clears everything again, and this is kind of starting to get to the point now where we start to get screwed over by numbers and rolls in these last coming up turns. So we are back in yet again Yuxi versus Jirachi. Jirachi hits us with that U-turn, goes into Rotom Mo, and we hit that Draining Kiss off of the switch, which gets a more comfortable amount. Still not enough to set up a sub, but it's comfortable. So we go one more turn just to recover so we can set up the sub if needed, which gives him a chance to use the defog. Now you have the leftovers and we just kind of keep chipping away at this point. We know Rotom can't touch us, so we're quite happy to just let him switch into that. And he goes back into the Jirachi, who we know pretty much walls Yuxi and can just start causing damage. And we go to the Latios, he gets the free wish up, and we expected the pivot at this point because he threw the wish up, so we went Draco Meteor, but he stayed in, which kind of cost us, and he pivoted that way rather than just the hard switch, which meant that Nidoking benefited from the wish. So Deontay comes in and we do get a clutch kill here because Earth Power he hadn't seen, which is absolutely fair enough. So we get the kill to balance at 3-3. Now we hit the Moonblast, and now that is where it's the killer because that was 60 to 70%, and I think it was like 60 to 75, and that was an obscenely low roll. Like I think there's only 2 rolls, the 2 bottom rolls wouldn't have killed it. And as you can see at this point, so Honchkrow is hitting 57%, which is super nice, and I'm like, right, we can do this, we've got this with the burn damage, so we get the 57%. So Roost takes it to 62, burn 55, that's fine, we've hit 57, should do it, and we hit 50. The second low roll that cost us, that would have been Mega Altaria down. We'd have had the Moxie trigger, which would have been enough for us to KO Jirachi with Honchkrow and swept what was left. So yeah, that was super unlucky. That third one was such a low roll. We do get a little consolation kill here with Yuxi at the end, so we do only lose 1-0. which is absolutely fine, and I'm more than happy taking a loss against someone from the division above and losing only 1-0. Can't really be mad at that. The fact that it was such a close match in the end, and if those roles had went a little differently, we could have been sat with a W there. So yeah, it was a pretty epic long match and came down to the wire. But no, super good match by Chaw there. Not sure if he has any YouTube or Twitch or anything, but if he does, I'll link it down below. But yeah, so that's our first exhibition match. Our next exhibition match lined up is against Joe, who is head coach of the New Jersey Rotoms. That match, I'm not sure when we're going to be playing that match soon, but I'm not sure when I'll have the time to get all that sorted due to personal commitments, but hopefully that match will be sorted and organised and up soon. In terms of regular season, we have games coming up. We need to recover quite nicely from our loss. We went from when we went 1-1, and fingers crossed we can begin to string together a nice few wins and stay near the top of that table. It's early days, so one win could jump you mid-table to the top, and similar, a couple of losses and suddenly you're right down at the bottom. But you know, it's early days in the season and we have a super strong team, and the fact that we can put in performances like that against the majors guys just shows we can do it. We just need to keep pushing, and we will make playoffs, fingers crossed. But thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't done already, please drop a like on the video, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you again next time. Ciao.